Hi everyone. I hope all of you can hear me. Please do react with a yes if I'm audible clearly. Okay, awesome. So good evening everyone. So how are you all doing? There are very few people who have joined in today. Maybe let me announce in the group once. Just give me one moment. Let me just quickly announce in the groups. How are your exams going? Like, is there anybody whose exams are still going on? Okay, for most of you, they are over. That's great. So let's see, we have around 60 people who have tuned in. So let's wait for one more minute and then we'll get started. So I have just announced in the groups. Okay. So for some of you, it's going to start like Tananj says that they will start in some time. Alok says that they'll start. Shibhom says that he has an exam tomorrow. Okay. Okay. So basically, let's just wait one more minute. Did you all get time to try the commands that we have discussed? Like, did you all try something after the session? Did you explore anything new apart from just what we discussed? Costo says he will start. Okay, no issues. I got only 7 yeses. Okay, Yogeshwar says I have done most of it. Okay, got the point. So basically, the more you practice yourself, the more you will understand development. So see, till now we haven't gotten into development as such, but we are just going through some of the pre-requirements so that when we start with the main topics from the next session, we will be able to basically we will not have to worry about syntax as such, right? We don't have to worry too much about the Python syntax, too much about the shell commands. We will be able to smoothly go through the Django project. We'll be able to create it from scratch, right? So most of the things would become very much easier. That's why we had these 3 sessions this week to just cover up some of the very basic things. Okay. So I'll take up doubts in some time. Do not worry, Yogeshwar. Okay. Fine. So we have 64 people who have joined in. Let's just see if there are more people. I don't understand why we have less people today. Yes, costume, no issues. So we will be able to discuss after the session. So basically keep all your miscellaneous doubts till the end. Okay. So what we are planning is like, let's not discuss anything that's outside the flow. Let's just first finish the basic things and then at the end we will have doubts. Okay. And regarding the bash assignment questions, we will be uploading their video tutorial. So you need not worry. I have that in the back of my mind. I will get that done very soon. So till then you can read the reference. You can try to explore on your own. Okay. So do not worry about anything that we have committed. We will be providing you that. So, okay. No, there was no class yesterday, Isha. So we have the third class today. Okay. So our main goal is not to basically become a shell programmer completely, right? Our basic goal is actually to build a web app. Of this entire dev sessions is to build a web application, start right from the scratch that has some database, right? That will actually be interactive application, right? My net connection might be a little slow. If you face any issues in my voice, video, screen, please do let me know then and there itself. Okay. So I have all the chat going on in this separate window. So I'll a look and answering your doubts. Okay, cool. So I think I have joined back again with a different connection. So basically, I'm using two or three connections. So do not worry. If there will be any internet connectivity issues, it will get resolved very soon, right? But I think it won't happen again. Can you all hear me perfectly well now? Please do react with a yes. Okay, awesome. So basically, Atharv, I just had asked all of you to just type in a statement what all you remember about Git. Okay. So most of you say that you remember that it's a version control system. Great. And you all have written some commands. Okay, perfect. So shall we now get started, or or do we need to wait for more people? What do you all say? Start. Okay. So it's already 8:45. All of you had your dinner, right? Okay, okay. Stop typing start, please. Get set go. Ayan says. Okay, most of you didn't have your dinner yet. Okay. Do you have it after the class is over? Okay, got it. So let me just share my screen. Fine. Can you all please confirm during the class as well? Ayan says. Okay. I think my screen should be visible to all of you. Okay. Awesome. So basically, I'm using VS Code Editor. We will be today learning some very basic of Python so that from the next few sessions, you won't be facing any kind of trouble. Okay. So just to get started, what all we discussed in the previous session, I'll give you a brief recap. I think my voice video is slightly lagging as I can see in my other screen. So let me just check for 1 minute. No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Still, let me just check for a moment so that there is no issues at the runtime. Okay. I'll just have all my backup connections ready. Just give me 1 moment. Fine. So if there is any issues, I'll switch the connection. Okay. So now let's just get started. I'll briefly recap what all we discussed in the previous session about Python. So as you all know, Python is a very powerful language. It has a lot of packages, a lot of modules. So Django is one such framework that is built on top of Python and which we will be starting from our next session. Okay. So starting from our next session, we will be ultimately learning Django. That is our aim, to learn one web framework and to build a end-to-end fully functional app in the framework. Okay. So in that we might have to learn a bit of HTML, a bit of CSS, a bit of JS might not be required though, because we will be give me a minute. Uh, yeah. Fine. I suppose you all can hear me fine now. Okay. Still, let me just check. No, no, no. Yeah. So I have all the backup ready. Yeah. So I was saying about JS exactly. So we might not require too much of JS because we are doing all our stuff on Python mostly. So some kind of okay. I think you all can hear me fine now. Yeah. So first of all, see, this issue won't happen once the class starts. Okay. I think video will work fine. Don't worry. I have a fast connection, but it's actually not so reliant. Like I have two or three connections. Not all of them are so reliant. So I try to switch between them if anything happens. Okay. I'm living in that part where actually we have broadband, but its upload speed isn't that good. So that's why actually I have to rely on other connections. If you disable your video, everything will get sorted. Okay, but then it's not a good experience. Right now, I think it's going good for all of you. If anything happens, fine, just 1 moment. Okay. So I was just saying that we might need a little bit of HTML, CSS that we will learn on the go. Okay, from the next week, we will be starting with all this Django and HTML, CSS. Fine, I think it should be perfect. Please do let me know. Okay, so till now what I was saying is we will be interacting with database in the application that we will be creating. Okay, so now before that we need to know a little bit of Python because ultimately Django is built on top of Python. So today's session is just going to be about some very basic things that we will be using in the next sessions altogether. So does that make sense till this point? Anyone has any questions till this point? Yeah, what exactly is ORM, that we will be discussing in detail in the next sessions when we start our database concept and how we interact with database using the Django framework. Okay, so basically it will allow us to relate our classes or objects that we will be having to the database actually. So do not worry if all of this doesn't make sense. Not exactly, Yogeshwar. So we'll study about it in the next week. Okay. So now everything in Python actually is an object. Okay. So let's say we start with very basic. So in the previous session, we just had initialized some variables. So let's say I create a is equal to 3, b is equal to 4. And let's say I just try to print. So that's how print statement in Python looks like. It's very simple. Print a. And then maybe I'll try to print type of a. So there is a method type that will allow us to print the type of a given object. Okay. So see that type takes the object as the parameter and it returns the type of that object. So let's say type print of a. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this. So I have the terminal set up on the right side so that it will be easier. I do not have to switch back and forth. That's why I'm using this VS Code. Okay. You need not type the commands with me. Okay. So you can just write down small things on a piece of paper. Class you are able to try all these things on yourself. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll try to cover what much is necessary for you, right? Yeah, that is a very good question. So we'll try to learn the things as they will be required from the next sessions. Today we'll build the foundation for the syntax or for the concepts of Python, right? Since every programming language is almost the same, just that there are syntax differences, right? And you will be able to write Django code smoothly once we have laid the foundation in the today's session. Okay, voice is breaking. Is it breaking for all of you? I don't think that is the case. Okay, so let's now try to run this program. Okay, sorry, I'll just clear it. I'll just say Python 3 basics dot. Okay, it's taking in some other arguments as well. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm not inside the folder. So how do I get inside the session 3 live folder? I can simply say cd, or let's just say that I'm inside the notes folder first and then inside the session 3 live folder. Fine. So now you see that how all this is helpful, what we learned in our first session, right? And now let's try to run this. So what you see as the output is 3. First of all, that a gets printed and then the type of a gets printed. So now how does a Python code run? Like how exactly is a Python code executed? Is Python a compiled language or is it an interpreted language? And everyone, react with yes if it is interpreted, react with no if it is compiled. No, Isha, it's not a compiled language. In compiled language, what happens is first you write the code and then all of it gets. Can you all hear me? Okay. Okay, I think you all can hear me now. Fine. Okay, so let me just share my screen. So please do ask your questions in the questions chat, and I will take your questions after a given time. Okay, so as to not to interrupt the flow. Okay, this time we'll have slight different way. We'll take all your questions in one go. Okay, so let's just start from where we left. Fine, I think you all can hear me. So we just were saying whether it is compiled or interpreted, right? So basically it's actually an interpreted language. That means all the code gets executed line by line, right? So whenever there is any error that comes in any of the line, your code execution will stop then and there itself, right? So if I just, let's say I try to make this error. So let's now try to run. So now you will see that it gives you an error that line number 13 invalid syntax. Actually, the error was in 11th line, but it's showing you 13th line, right? So maybe let me try to do something like this, print x. Now you will see that in line number 11, it gives the error that x is not defined, right? So whenever there is an error comes, it will be shown then and there itself. Some of you, I think I can see my screen in my other window, so there might be a connection issues with your end. Please do refresh the page if anything is not loading for you. Okay, fine. So now I think you all get the idea that here everything gets executed line by line, and whenever, or this should be clear in one more moment. So let's say I just try to print hello over here, and now let's try to run this. So if I just run this now, you will see that the hello got printed and then it showed you the error. So unlike C++, where you first run and then you get all the errors in one go, here and you could see the output hello, and then the line number 11 got executed. You can see that X is not defined, right? Does that make sense to all of you? Yeah, it won't be showing all the errors. So let's say I try to print type of Y here, then it won't show me the type of Y as the error. It's just giving me one error, right? So only the last or the first error would be shown to you, right? So are these two things clear till this point? How do we initialize variables? Since it's a dynamically typed language, you do not have to specify the type of any variable. So for example, here a and b are integers. You need not specify their type to be integers. Okay, so once you just print the types of these variables, let's say I print the type of a. So in that case, you will be able to see that it is integer. You do not specify it, it would be visible. Anirudh, I will pick that question. So all of you, I'll pick your questions in one go. Do not worry. So I might not be answering the questions right away because that interrupts the flow sometimes. So basically, let's do this way. Let's just listen to the concept for some time, for 10-15 minutes. Then let's open the floor for questions for 2-3 minutes. Likewise, let's continue our session. So do not uh, wait for the response to be like received right away. I will take a look at the questions in just one go. Okay. So I hope that will be much better for all of you. Please do react with a yes if that's fine. Okay. So till now we have learned two things. It's an interpreted language and it's dynamically typed. All of you are with me till this point. Anybody who is not able to understand? Okay. So now actually Python is used in a lot of scenarios. It's actually used in, as we will be learning in web dev, it's used mostly in the Django framework. There are two different frameworks, Django and Flask, but it's actually Django is actually more popular today nowadays. Okay, and then the fourth thing, it's actually also used in the data science and machine learning, right? You must have been hearing about data science and machine learning a lot. So actually, Python is the most common language that's used over there. So that's why learning Python will never be something that you will regret, right? Because it's a really powerful language. It's also used in scripting and web automation, right? So I hope till this point things are making sense. I'll now briefly recollect some of the things we discussed. Let's say that I want to store the sum of two variables. Then I can say C is equal to A plus B. I want the difference. I can say C is equal to, or let's say D is equal to A minus B. Or let's just give some good names, sum equal to this and difference equal to this. So the mathematical operators work as usual, right? As we had studied in other languages. I can just have the modulo also. I can say A mod B, right? And let's try to print sum, print difference, print mod. So if I just run this program, you will see that you get 7, -1 and 3, right? So all of these are integers currently, right? Now, one thing happens that is different than other languages when you want to divide. So now there are two types of division in Python. One is the integer division, right? So in this case, what happens if we write slash slash? So then we get 3 divided by 4, and then we will take the integer value of that. So can everyone type the division value? React with yes if it's going to be an integer, react with no if it's going to be a decimal. Okay, so all of you say that it's going to be an integer. You see that 3 by 4 is floor division. So I generally prefer to say divide 2 times as by. So it's actually 3 by 4. That means it's actually 0. So it's actually floor division, right? Okay. Like your integer division works in C++, Java, or any other language. So I'll just briefly tell what I said is there are two types of divisions in Python. Now you will be able to better understand what I'm saying. And one request from my side to all of you that do not try to also type the commands along with me. So we will be able to understand each and everything only if you are listening to me first of all, right? So just don't try to also type. You can just keep a note in your pen and paper. Just don't to type on PC. That might become little difficult to understand. So now let's try to run this. You can see that one of your outputs is 0, other of your outputs is 0.75. So this slash 2 times actually works like normal slash in any other language, right? So it works like the normal slash, that is the integer division in other languages. And in Python, actually, this slash actually works like float division. So the resulting value will be a decimal value, right? I hope it makes sense to all of you. So after this, we will not be going into any maths today. So this is the only time we are having some small maths. Okay. So now let me just go through the questions that you all have asked and try to see if anything is unanswered. So there were some questions. Why is there no main function in Python? So actually, Adarsh, this will be clear in some time. There is not the main function, but there is something called as a double underscore name, double underscore. That's a variable that we will come to in a short while. Okay. So Ayan, why aren't we using JS, React, and Node? Okay, so I'll take that at the end, Ayan, at the end of the session. What's the difference between, okay, Yogeshwar, I think that's answered. What is indentation error, Anirudh? It should be clear. Indentation, I don't know exactly what exactly it is. So I'll just mark it. Yes, Yogeshwar, it should be answered in some time. Do not worry. Will divide twice. No, it won't divide twice. It's actually going to be integer division, right? So when we say 3 divided by 5, let me just open the Python 3 shell. If I say like this, let's say if I say 12 by divide 4, if I say 12 divide 5, so you see that it's actually the integer division, right? This 2 slashes in integer division, 1 slash is normal division. Okay. Yes, Anirudh, that should be clear. What exactly is indentation error? So when we will be using loops and conditionals. Okay. So I'll mark it at answer for now. Why can't we initialize without assigning a value? I did not get that exactly. Why can't we initialize without assigning a value? So can we say that A is just a variable and print A? Okay. Yogeshwar is saying, how do we declare a variable? So we can simply say the variable name and then equal to some value, right? So in case of lists, when we will be dealing with arrays, I can simply create an empty array, right? But we need to give some value because we ultimately do not have type definitions, right? Like we do not say integer a or we do not say float a. So we need to give some value to differentiate, right? Okay. So if I just print the type of a, it should come out to be a list. Fine. So I hope that answers all of your questions. Yes, without initialization, I don't think that's possible in Python because you need to know the type of that variable. Yes, that's not possible exactly. So anybody else has any questions? Now I will just stop taking the questions for a while. Okay, I'll just stop taking the questions. Ankan, it reads the code from top to bottom. It starts from the first line of your code and then goes all the way till the bottom, right? Yes, we could declare the same variable multiple times. It simply overrides the previous variable, right? So I'll just do one thing, like, see, you all understand that we cannot take all the doubts in one go. So please have some patience. I'll take up everything that we need to understand, right? So let's just stop questions for a moment and let's just listen from here. Okay, fine. Now I'm continuing with here. We also discussed something about f string. So till now, mostly what we are doing is we are doing a brief recap, I think. So now we have to start with something new. So let's just see how can we basically have the loops or conditionals. So I gave you a brief idea how we can have some conditionals, right? But still, let me repeat that part. So what we have is we just have a if uh, keyword, then we give some condition. So let's say that if some variable var, let's initialize this variable with 10. If var is greater than 5, now in other languages what you have something like this. Then you give some blocks in the curly braces. But in Python, what can you do is you can give a colon. Now if you press enter, you see that the next line will start from two spaces or four spaces automatically. I have set my configuration to two spaces. If it's four spaces in your editor, it will start from four spaces, right? So now once you give something, let's say that print var greater than 5. Okay. Then once you press enter, it will keep on prompting you to enter something into this block, right? Until you press a backspace, right? Now what you have done is you are out of this block scope. Now you can start either the else block or you can have something else. Like if you just want a normal if, let's say outside if, and let's just try to print run this. So now you can see that we print where is greater than 5 and then we go outside the if. So does that make sense? We can also have else, then again we have to press else and then we have to go to another block and let's say print var is less than 5. So let's make var as, let's say something like 1. So now if we run, we will get it's less than 5 and outside if. Okay. So I hope conditionals are making sense. Similarly, we have if else if. So there you just have to say elif and then you have else. So it's very much similar. So let's say that elif var is less than 5. So let's make var as 5 in this case. And now let's try to run this. So you see that var equals to 5, right? So now conditional should be very much clear to you. It's very simple thing. Once you know one language, only the syntax differs slightly. Rest everything is the same, right? Okay, so now we will continue from here. What we will discuss about is we will discuss about something else, right? We are coming to loops in a while, but we have few more things. So let's just discuss how can we take input from the user, right? So let's say that we want input from the user. So I can just say the indentation should be visible to you, Yogeshwar. It's not to be tracked something like it's visible to you by naked eyes, right? You can see that this block is inside this. That's why Python is so neat, easy to understand. Unlike other languages, it's very easy to read. So let's say that we take a variable n as input from the user. So if I now just try to print n, let's just take something as input. Let's run this. So it is asking us some value. Let's give some string. Let's say that I give the name. Okay. So now it simply printed that to us. Now let's say if I want to give two integers, so then what can I do? So let's say I give 5, it will print me 5, but let's also try to print the type of n. Okay. So now what you can see is it's waiting for the input. Let's give you 7. So now it says that 7 is actually a string, but is 7 a string? No. So 7 is not a string, right? So what we have to do, we have to actually convert it. So either what we can do is right after taking the input, we can convert it to integer. So the typecasting happens something like this. You give the final desired type. So like in this case, it's int of x. It will convert x to int. Uh, x will not get converted. Actually, what will happen is whatever will be the result, y will be an integer of x, right? So that means y is actually converted from x to an integer. So let me give you another example to make this clear. So let's say that I store this input in some string. Okay. And then I say that n is equal to int of s. Now let me just try to print both these things. Print s comma type of s and print n comma type of n. So now if I try to run this, let's take 67 as the input. So you see that s is 67 and type of s is string. N is 67, type of n is int, right? Everything in Python is an object. That's why you can see that class keyword comes here, right? Anything you see, it will have a type of class in Python generally, right? Okay. So I'll just pause here for a minute. If you have any questions around these two things, please do ask. So I'll pause for a minute, take up any questions and then proceed. Okay, so Faraz, I think your question is answered now. How to take input variable? Is s is equal to input the only way of taking a string as an input? Right, Mahip. The input keyword is only that something you have to use. If let's say you want to give some prompt, then you can say please enter the input. So in that case, what happens? You also will get a prompt. So please enter the input, right? Let's say 5. If we don't want to give anything, so let's just keep it empty. Okay. Let me see any other questions we have. Can I typecast from integers to string? Absolutely, absolutely, Yogeshwar. Just put the str keyword. So now let's say that I want to convert t is equal to str of n. Now let's try to print t comma type of t. Now you see that let's give 5. So t actually now is a string, right? You can again go back. So by giving the keyword str, so you are doing explicit typecasting here. Okay. So that's answered now, Yogeshwar. Yeah, by default, everything is a string. Not everything is a string, Pragnya. Everything is not a string. Everything is an object. Some objects are of integer type, some of are string type. There are different types, right? Okay. Faraz, how to declare string? Okay, so I'll just skip some questions here because they are directly not relevant. I have answered your questions mostly. Okay, so I'll not take each and every question because that will break the flow of the session. I'll take some questions at the end, right? Okay, fine. So let's now proceed now. So we are done with the basic of Python, what you all need to know, right? So now we'll learn something more. So we'll learn about some kind of types, some kind of containers we have, like in C++ or C or Java, you have arrays or array lists. Here you have lists, right? You have strings here. In C or C++, you have characters. Here you have strings, right? So you also have characters here, right? So let's just go through some of the types and some of the containers. So I'll just create a new file. Let's just say touch data types.py. Let me just open data types.py. Okay. So now let's just continue from here. Okay. Just give me one moment. So I'm just checking what all I actually. Yeah. So just give me one moment. Okay. I'm just checking if I have skipped anything over here. No, fine. So there are types like number. Number can be integer, float, or complex, right? There are generally these three basic types over here for the numbers. Then we have characters. So let's say that I make a character and let's try to print the type of A. And let's try to make a string. I should not be use the str keyword. Let's say that name is equal to, let's take maybe somebody. Let's take Tananch again. So he's the first person who has the last question or the last comment in the chat. Okay. So you see that A is actually a string. So now how actually we have characters? Do we have characters here? So I'll just print one more thing. Let's just try to print ORD of A and print CHR of 97. And let's just try to print the type of CHR of 97. Okay. Yeah. So you see that there are no character types. Actually, we just have string only, right? So what I did, no magic I did, ORD actually converts your given character to its ASCII value, right? Small a is 97. CHR actually takes you back from the ASCII to the character. And once we are trying to print the type of this CHR, this character, it's actually a string only, right? So we could have our strings in any format. We could have them in double quotes, in single quotes, right? But make sure you stick to only one notation, right? Okay. So if that makes sense, that's very simple. So we have numbers, we have strings, and we also have Boolean type. So let me just give you, let's say A is equal to true, and let's try to print the type of A. Now you will encounter a syntactical error here. Why? Because true is small t is not the case here. In other languages, you have small t. Here you have capital T, right? So now you see that it's actually a Boolean type. So this ORD is nothing but it converts the character to the ASCII value, and CHR actually converts the ASCII value to the character. These are basically functions. CHR and ORD are methods or functions. Okay, so I hope that makes sense now. Fine. So we can concatenate strings, right? So let me just give you an example where we concatenate two strings. Let's say hi is equal to hello is one string. Bye is equal to goodbye is another string. So I can just say that hi plus equal to bye, and let's now try to print hi. What will be the output here, all of you? Will there be any space between the characters? No, right? It will just get concatenated directly. So that's how you can concatenate the strings using the plus equal operator. So that's very simple. Now, one more thing I'll try to do in front of you is basically, let's say we want to print something multiple times. So in Python, it's very simple. We can just say the string multiplied by that many times. So now it will get printed 3 times, right? Yes, absolutely, Yogeshwar. Okay, good. So now there are too many methods you can explore. As and when we use them, we will just try to tell them to you, right? You can also convert to uppercase. So let's just say you want to convert hi to the uppercase. So I can just say hi dot upper. If you want to find the index of a particular character, so then you can say h dot hi dot find. Let's say you want to find the first index of L. You can simply say dot find L. It will give you the first index, that is 2. So there are a lot of such methods. We might not be able to cover all of them, and not all of them will be useful. As and when something you need, you can just go to the python.org documentation of Python, and then just try to find that function. Okay. Okay. Please make sure to have your questions in the questions tab, all of you. So it might be the case I might answer some of the questions later because they are not directly related, right? So please try to ask your questions only in the questions tab, because some of the questions might not be related directly. So let me just take up Ankan's question. He's saying, can we print two strings with an integer values in between? Okay, so what exactly you are trying to say? We can use f strings, right? We can just use f strings, which we discussed. I can say hello, and then let's say I want to print the variable a, and I just give you a is equal to 2, and then let's try to print this string hi. Okay, so now if I just try to run this, so you will see that hello to hello goodbye, right? First this hello prints, then the a value with a space, and then with a space the hi variable, right? So this f strings is actually very powerful. Exactly, Ayan. So I think we should proceed now. We know the basic data types now. Now we need to come to something that's little more advanced, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm straightforwardly moving to the lists, and then from lists we will learn loops, and then we will learn some other advanced concepts. Finally, we will be able to cover briefly what all you will be using in your upcoming sessions, right? So what I'm going to create a new file now. Now we will learn about some more advanced data types like lists or dictionaries in Python, right? So let me create a new file, Python 3. Let's say lists.py. Uh, okay. What it's saying me is can't open file. Okay, I actually want to create it, so I need to say touch list.py. Now let's just try to open this. Okay, wait. Let me open this session 3 live. Wait. Just give me one moment. I think I had created some file before the session, so I'll just open the current file. Open it from here, right? So let's just first of all try to create an empty list. Let's say A is an empty list, and then let's try to see how can we insert elements into this list. So a list in Python is like a dynamic array. So I hope most of you have studied about dynamic arrays by now. So you can simply change the size by just giving the function, let's say a dot append 6, and then if I try to print a, it will give me that it has a variable 6, right? Let's try to run python 3 list.py. Okay. So I'll just launch a short quiz for you. I'll just launch a short quiz. Just give me a moment. I'll have two quizzes for all of you just to check if you are attentive enough and if you are following along. If you have anything that's not clear, it would be prominent then, and you can ask any doubts. Okay. Fine. So this was simple. This was actually simple. You just have to give the len function, just like the other functions that we had discussed. So if I just go back to the data types, what I could do is, like the type function is there, like the chr ord functions are there, I can just say that print the length of, okay, it will just print the length. The other methods that were there, they actually do not work, uh, because this len function is a general function that will work for lists as well as it will work for strings or any other type as such. So if I just try to print the length of a, then again you will be seeing that it will give you 1 as your output. Here the length of this high was actually 12 because this contains all these characters, hello, goodbye. Okay. So now let's try to see the same thing for the list. Now we can see that it prints you the length is 1, right? So I hope it makes sense. I'll just launch one more quiz. This one is a simpler one. So we have just now discussed this. Tanan says that's just the syntax of Joe has so. Okay, see, it's because these objects, like this A is actually a list object. It does not have a list object has no attribute named as length. Okay, so because this length is a generic function that is defined for any data type, right? It's actually not present for all the types that we have. So by that I mean it's not a method of the class. So it will be clear when we will be discussing about classes. Do not worry about it. So if we are clear till this point, we are clear how we can append the element in a list. So why does the insert function do not work, right? Why does the insert function do not work? Anybody? Because insert actually takes one more thing as the argument. So let's just try to insert something into a, let's say 7. Will this work? No. Insert expected 2 arguments. It needs another argument. First argument is the index. Second argument is the value, right? So let's just say I want to insert something at index 7, that is 10. So now will this work? So if I just try to print a now, let's see what happened. So you see that now it actually could not insert at 7 because the list has just size of 1. So it will insert at the last position in that case. And let's say if I pass 0 now, a dot insert 0, 5. And let's try to print a. So now what will happen is it will print at the first index 5. 0th index, I mean, right? Okay. So I hope it makes sense to all of you now. Awesome, awesome. Shreya says yes, it's clear. Okay. So we have seen very basic functions: append, insert. Now there are also functions that allow us to. There are also some ways that allow us to find some particular chunk of this list. So to get some sublist, let's say I want to print A from only index 0 to index 1, or let's say I want to print it starting from index 2. So I can say just 2 colon. Now it will take everything after the index 2. So now you see that we get only 10 as our answer. Also we can index from the end. So Python has a cool feature that allows us to index from the end. So I can just say print A of -1. It will give us the value as 10, right? So we can also have negative indexing that starts from the end of the array in Python, right? So isn't that very good? Okay, fine. So Pragne, you can. So what I will do is, for that I'll just create another list. Let's say I create another list. L2 is equal to 579, and let's just try to say extends a dot extend L2. So now let's try to print A. So now you see that A has 5, 6, 10 also. That was earlier the case. 6, 10, and 5 got inserted, and now it also has 5, 7, 9. So we can use the extend method, right? Inside append we might not be able to do. Okay, we are able to, but then what will happen? It will create a list, right? Inside list, a list inside a list. So it will become kind of a nested list, right? Okay. So can you please explain line number 17, Atharv? It's just trying to extract the elements starting from 2, starting from index 2. Let's say I want to print the elements of this A from index 0 or from index 2 to index 5. I want this subarray. So I can do like this, and now if I run, it will give me only this subarray. Or let me just remove this append and use the extend keyword. So now you can see that we get 5, 6, 10, then we get 5, 7, 9. That was L2. And now if I just try to print from index 2 to 5, I will get only these 3 values, right? Okay, extend simply concatenates 2 lists. Absolutely, Tananj. Yes, you can use the reverse method, right? To reverse the list. Please explain 9, 20, and 21. Okay, 20 and 21 allow us to index the list from the end. So we can just extract this A of -1 simply means the last element. This simply means the second last element. Okay. Fine. So I'll just see if anything is left. Okay. So let's now concentrate from here. So till this point, we have seen very simple things, but actually Python has one more powerful way to actually basically create lists. So let's say that I want the list of squares of all natural numbers, or not all, or let's just say of first 10 natural numbers. So how can I do this? So first of all, there is a way that allows us to just extract the first 10 numbers. So there is a range keyword that allows us to give first 10 numbers. So let's now try to print what is range of 10. Okay. So this range 10 allows us to create the first 10 natural numbers. Now you see that it gives us a range object. Okay. It does not give us the values, it gives us the range object. So now how do we get the numbers? So for that, what I have to do, I just have to convert this to a list, right? It's similar to how I was converting the type of integer to string or string to integer. You can just give the type list outside the range, right? Does that make sense to all of you? How you got the numbers from 0 to 9? It starts from 0, range of 10. It starts from 0 and goes till end -1. That is 10 - 1. The last number is not included. So if we want the first 10 natural numbers, what I have to say is I have to say range of 1 till 11, right? And let's try to print this. So it starts from 1 and goes all the way till 10. I'll just convert it to a list. So you see that we got the first 10 natural numbers, right? If 2 to 8, you just give 2 and 9 in this, right? Yes, we mentioned the start point exactly. And we can also mention the steps. Let's say we want to go in steps of 2. We want only the odd numbers. In that case, we can mention a step increment of 2 as the third argument, right? Okay, so there are a lot of these things that allow us to make computations much easier. Now, what exactly we are going to do? We are going to do one tricky thing here. So there is a concept known as list comprehensions in Python. Now let me just first of all write the line of code and then let's try to understand that. So if I just say squares is equal to uh, x into x for x in list of range of 1 to 11. So you see that by just one line, we will get the squares of natural numbers, first 10 natural numbers. This is a very interesting concept, right? It's used a lot. So you see that we get the squares of all the first 10 natural numbers, right? Just by one line of code. So how many of you are seeing this for the first time? Please do react with a yes if you are seeing this concept for the first time. Okay. So I'll just repeat it again. What happens here? I did not explain it. Let me explain it now. We are saying just iterate over every number x in the list. So how many numbers are there in the list? From 1 to 10. And then take the square of x for each element. So before going to this, let's do one thing. Let's first try to write down a loop. For loop to do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is for x in list of range of 1 comma 11. By this you will also have an understanding of how the for loops work. You provide a variable, iterator variable, that is x. You provide where you want to iterate and then you give the name of the list, right? So sorry, not the name, in case you had stored it inside a list. So let's say first 10 natural numbers. So then I can just pass in here and then I can simply print x, right? So that's how a for loop would look like. It will simply print all the numbers from 1 to 10. Now, yes, something like that, Athav. Access the list dot begin. It will start from the first value. Now, what we want to do, we want to create another list, squares list. Let's just start with the empty list. And then let's say that squares list dot append x into x. And now if we print squares list, it will give us the same output. Okay. So my bad, actually, I think I gave a different name, right? So it says that name is not defined. So also it is a good habit to understand the error message and try to debug it, right? Just make the consistent name over here. Now you can see you get the same list. So now we have seen how to do the same thing in two different ways. So in the first way, what we are doing is we are simply saying that for every number x in this, just take the x square and add it to the list. So that's how a simple list comprehension is. Here what you will do, you will iterate over every element, compute its square and append it to the list. So this single line will do the same thing for you in a shorter way, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, x is equivalent to for int I is 0, something like that. It's actually, if you see in C++, it's equivalent to for auto, for order, or actually let's say for integer x in vector we see just cout x. In C++, it could be something like this. You are iterating over the variable or the data inside a list, or a vector. C++ equivalent, if you say. Yes, no overflow issues actually, Athav, because in Python the data types, the number data type actually can store large numbers as well, right? So you don't have to worry about that. In that case, what you could do is you could simply say 11, 1 and -1. Then what will happen is you will start from the last number. So your list has to be changed in that way, right? Just change your list in that way. So in that case, Isha, what you can do is you can use the dot reverse method. Okay, I think it's none type object is not iterable. So let's just use the reverse method, I think. Okay, it's not like this only. Uh, if I just try to print this, okay, if I just try to print this, then it would give me a list, or it won't give me a list. It gives me a none. Okay. So this dot reverse actually reverses in place. It reverses in the same array. So I cannot iterate over this. Okay, so you can think about it. It will be an interesting exercise. I do not have the solution right away. You have to construct some solutions on your own, right? So till this point, what we have discussed, all of you, is we have discussed how do we, what all types we have, right? How to work with strings. And then we have discussed how to work with lists and how to write down the for loops and one interesting trick, that is the list comprehension, right? So I'll give you one more example of a list comprehension. So let's say that we have a string. If we say that we have a string and we want to just print the vowels inside the string. So let's say we have a string. Let's take somebody's name. Let's say that I wanted to take a large enough name. So I'll just taking this. Now what I want to print only the vowels. So what I can say, I just want x is equal to, I want to create a list maybe of those characters. So x for, sorry, let's say ch for ch in s. Then I can also specify a condition over here, that is if ch is in the vowel list, that is a, I, o, u. Now if I try to print x and let's just see what happens. You see that you will get only those letters which are vowels in his name, right? Does that make sense? So we can also filter in the comprehensions very easily by providing a condition. So first of all is the iterator variable, then on what we need to iterate, and then the condition. Condition is optional. So I know this might be a little tricky right now. Yogeshwar, it's just string as a char is treated as string. You are saying in a different way. You should think first of all what you are trying to say. Okay. Yeah, this is a string. So we will be checking if this character is present inside this string, right? This in keyword just allows us to check whether an element is present in a list or not. So let's just, sorry, let's just give me one moment. Yes, Manish, the list comprehension. Let's just try to print whether the character, let's say that G is present in S. Okay. So now it will return a true because G is present in S, right? So this in keyword just allows to check if a particular character is present in a string or not, or if a element is present in a container, right? It could be an integer we are checking in a list. Okay. So I hope this makes sense to all of you. Anirudh says line number 55 again. Please do not send me any questions in the private chat because I'm not looking at those. Okay. So basically what it will do is for every, let's just first remove this. Okay. Now you see that all the characters got printed of the name Burhanuddin Garari. Okay. Just the previous list comprehension where we were taking the squares of every number. Now we are taking the character inside the string. Now we are just asking to take another condition, that is if the character ch is present inside this list or not, inside this string or not. So this allows us to filter the relevant data. Okay. So I hope that's clear now, Anirudh. Fine. So now we have discussed almost what we needed, right? The basic about lists, the basics about Python, how things are working. Now we'll take a little turn here. We'll learn something more advanced. Okay. So first of all, if you have any questions, please do ask. Because from now we'll be starting something very interesting. For line 58, the output is true, Athav. Okay. So let me just first of all launch a very simple quiz, a few quizzes, and then we'll start with something else. Okay, fine. So here goes the quiz. This quiz is a little tricky one. All of you, please do answer. We only have a few people, handful of people who have answered the quiz. Rishav is leading now. That's great. Now see, let's just try to run this code. Oh wait, I need to print the breakfast variable. So isn't this amazing that we did not append to the list L1, but still it got appended. Sorry, we appended to the list L1, but not to the list breakfast, but it got appended to the list breakfast also, right? So how many of you got it right? Can you all react with a yes, those who got it right? Okay. There are a couple of students who got it correct. Yeah, exactly. Karthik, your question is answered by Venkat. So see, here what is happening is when we create the list, let me call this list as B, this list as L1. Let's say B dot extend just to make it easy to pronounce. I don't have to say the large characters again and again. So just think about it. Why could it happen? Anybody who has an answer. So those of you who answered incorrectly, can you make any guess over here? What happened differently? Only Nitin has given the answer. Anybody else wants to give it a try? Yes, Tanansh, you're correct. Okay. So see, what exactly happens is, let me just go line by line. So here the list L1 gets created, which has the value X. Okay. Here the list L2 gets created, which has the value. It has just one variable inside. Now, when we do B equals L1, what exactly happens deep inside is we get the value B, but it actually is pointing to L1 only, right? B is actually storing a reference to L1. That means whenever we will say B dot something, that will also change L1. Or whenever we will say L1 dot do something, that will also change B. So B and L1, although there are two variables, they are just same memory. That's it. So now if I say L1 dot append use, what will happen is B will become X in use. Okay. And L1 will also become the same, right? Because both of them are pointing to L1 only indirectly, right? And then we say B dot extend L2. In that case, what happens? Whatever are the contents of L2, they get copied to B. So now B will become X and juice and toast. Okay. So now I hope it makes sense that when you equate two lists, actually they do not get copied deep inside, right? They do not get copied like into a separate variable. It's like a alias. It's like a separate name for the same thing. Mm-mm-mm. Let's print L1 as well. You see that both of them would be the same, right? Exactly, Ayan. It will change L1 also, right? Okay. Yes, Vinay Kumar has a good question. How do we overcome this? Any suggestions? Anyone? How can we overcome this? Because we are using the extend keyword, Karthik. If we use the append keyword, then the second list will come inside the first list. Okay. Just try it out. Everybody, please try the things yourself. Just do not blindly ask questions also, because the most you will get out of the session is you will just learn some concepts. The syntax you will not learn from here, that you will learn when you will implement things yourself. Okay. We cannot cover everything. We are just touching on some basic concepts where you might get stuck or where you might not be able to understand yourself. Okay. Hmm. So there is one way to do this same thing. So do you all remember that we just discussed the list comprehension? What that allows us to do. So let me just say B is equal to X for X in L1. So what it will do is for every variable in L1, it will append it to B, right? So now B started from empty list and all these variables got appended, right? Yeah, we could append manually or using list comprehension. So this is one way to solve this issue. So now you see that both of them would be different. Okay, does that make sense to all of you now? Yes, you could use the copy keyword, but let's try that as an exercise. All of you please try to use the copy keyword as an exercise. Okay. So now there are a lot of things that we might not be able to cover, right? So all of you please try to keep exploring things. Let's just discuss some new concepts now. Okay. A few more concepts that we will be using in the upcoming sessions. Yes, yes, Athav, exactly. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you some few more things, very basic things. So first of all, what we will do is we'll learn about functions very briefly. So in Python, you can declare a function like this. Let's say def hello, and let's just give the some argument, or let's just give no argument. So you have to put the parameters and then the colon keyword, and then you can simply say print hello world. Okay, that's how you simply print something inside a function. So now if this piece of code gets executed, how do you think will it execute? If I just run this program, will the hello world be printed or will it not be printed? Right. All of you say that it won't be printed. Uh, so what happens here is it does not get printed. Why? Because this function was just declared and stored in a variable, right? The line by line, the function was not executed. Its value was just stored in a function pointer kind of. Now, when I just call this hello keyword, now it will actually call this function. Okay. So if I have some kind of syntactical error here, let's say I just try to do something strange. I just try to do 1/0. Then what do you think will happen? Will this give me some error? Yes, if it will give me some error. No, it will give me no error. What do you all say? React, please, so that it's visible. Most of you say that it's going to give an error. Let's just try to run. It does not give any error because all these lines inside this do not get executed. They are just read and stored inside this hello keyword. Now, this function, when we call, then only these inside lines get executed. Okay. Now you will see that division by zero error has occurred. Okay. So now you know how to define a function, how to call a function. Now just one more thing. So let's just say I call this function hello and I see what it prints. So what I'm doing is I'm using another print outside it. So now if I run this, how many print statements would be there? What do you all think? One or two? Anurag says error. So you see that there are two print statements. Most of you, all of you are wrong, not one. The second one returns us a none type, right? So when a function does not return anything, it returns us none. Okay. So if it were returning me something, then that will get printed. Otherwise, it will return none. Okay. So it's simply like a void function in C++ that simply returns nothing. So now based on this, I will have a short quiz on the same concept and let's see how clearly you ace it. So I want all of you to answer this correctly. Please take time before responding. Okay. Basically, the answer here was 4. Why? Actually, let's just analyze this in a moment. So one more thing I want to tell you before that. If a function does not have anything, what will happen then? If a function does not have anything, what will happen? It will give me an error. That is this indentation error. So basically, whenever we go inside a block and we do not have any statement, in that case, what we can do, we can simply say pass. Pass is a keyword that allows us to basically tell that there is nothing inside this. Okay. So now, if I just try to, I have not printed this hello. If I do that, it will give me one more none. Let me just remove this. So let us just analyze what happens now. So there are 4 print statements, as you can see. Ayan, we just had to print the number of print statements that will be there after executing this code. So after executing this add of x comma y, it returns us x plus y, that is 23, that gets printed, right? No, this uh, add of 10 comma 2 is 12, and this does not get printed, right? Why? Because this is returning us some value and we are not storing it anywhere, right? Does that make sense? Here we are not printing anything. Is this clear, at least this line? Now when we print add of 20 comma 3, it will return us something, and then we will print it. So 23 gets printed. Now when we call the mult method, then what happens is this takes 3 and 40 as the arguments. It will go inside and it will print 40 into 3, right? It prints 120. Then this function does not return, it does not return anything. Okay, so that's completely fine. We are not printing anything. Now what happens when we call print of mult of 40 comma 5? 40 into 5 gets printed inside, 200 gets printed. Then this function will return none. It will return none, and then that will also get printed by the external print statement. Does that make sense now? Why there are 2 prints? So this has 1 print, uh, right? And this has 1 print, and this has 2 prints. Why didn't we get none in line number 18? Right, because we are not printing it. If we were printing it, Athav, then we would have got it. Okay. So is everything making sense till this point? Should we go ahead to the next concept? Okay, Pratik is saying, please explain line number 18. So 40 and 3, this function gets called and this function is printing inside it, right? Does that make sense, Pratik? 120 will get printed in this way. Okay. Fine. So now see, we have learned. Okay, Pratik is saying, but add of 10 comma 2 will not get printed. Yes, it does not get printed because it will return some value, and we are not printing that, right? We are not printing that. Just understand this very carefully. Try to think about it yourself once. Okay. Fine. Now let's do one thing. Let's learn about 2 to 3 more simple things that we can simply complete in half an hour, right? Will that be okay? So, are you okay if we just take half an hour more and just discuss few more concepts? Okay. So the majority wins here. Cost to def is just used to define functions. So basically, as and when you will be defining a lot of functions when we'll be building the application, then it will get more clear, right? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you one more thing, that is about dictionaries in Python. Okay. So Python has a inbuilt data structure for dictionaries. Like let's say that in the lists you are indexing by the index, right? But let's say you want to index the name of a student to his or her age, right? Or if you want to index the name of a student to his or her marks, right? So like based on the name you want to get some properties related to it. So you can have key value pairs, just like hashing key value pairs in a dictionary data structure in Python. So let's simply say I want a dictionary of ages of students. I can say ages is a dictionary. So this will create a new dictionary for us using the curly braces, and let's just try to print the type of ages. Nothing will happen in this case. Okay. You see that it tells us it's a class of type dict. All right. So now, if we want to add students to it, let's say that I can say ages. So I can simply either do in this way: ages of, let's say, Costo is equal to 22, right? And let's just say ages of maybe Sahil is equal to, let's say, 23. Okay. So now if we just try to print ages now, it will give us the key value pairs, right? Have you seen JSON notation? Anybody? JSON, it looks very much similar to the JSON we have, right? JavaScript object notation. If you are not familiar about this term, please go and explore about it, right? So now if I want the name of a age of a particular student, I can simply pass in the key inside this, right? So this is the key and this is the value, right? So we have these key and value pairs. So very simply we can construct this dictionary and access the values, right? Okay, so this seems to be very simple, straightforward data structure. Now we can iterate over the keys. So let's just say we want to iterate over the keys. So first I can try to print all the keys. Let's just have one more person. Let's just say ages of Adarsh is equal to 21. So now if I just say print ages dot keys, so keys is a method associated with this dictionary object that simply gives us the dict underscore keys. Okay. If I want to iterate over this, I can say for key in ages dot keys, print key. Make sure you do not miss the colon, otherwise you will not get inside the indentation block. Now you can see that the keys are printed. Similarly, you can iterate in the values. So for val in ages dot values, print val. Okay. Now we will get the values. Okay. So you can also directly say that for key comma value in ages. In that case, you will iterate over both the things. You can simply say print key comma value. Okay, so I think you have to say ages dot items. So there is a method items that gives you both the things. It gives you a tuple basically. So like if I just print the type of this, okay. Let's just say for X in this. This is a tuple. So a tuple is basically a kind of a pair in this case. Since we have only two entries, it's like a pair in in C++, right? So here you can extract both the things from this tuple. That will be the name and the age. So now there is one difference in tuple. You cannot modify anything. This is immutable. So given a tuple, you cannot change it. Like you can change the lists or dictionaries. You cannot change it. So it's the one of the immutable data types in Python, right? So does that make sense to all of you? Any doubts till this point? Athab is unordered or ordered. Which thing are you asking about, Athab? So tuple is basically a like collection of values, but it is in that case where we do not want to modify something, right? If I just print a, it will print me a tuple. That is 1 comma 2. Like we have points. A 3D point will only be characterized by 3 values, right? We will not be able to extend the fourth dimension point into it, right? So a tuple has fixed set of fields. You can consider it like a row in a table. A row in a table, it will have a fixed entry for every column, right? Okay, I'll give it, I'll give a summary, but like, see, most of it you will understand when you will be implementing things. So just go through these things, and once we will be building the things, we will be able to understand things very clearly. Mahip, that's a totally unrelated question. Why? Because see, dict is a dictionary. Tuple is actually like a list. Tuple is like a list. Dict is like key value pairs. Okay. So I think we have gone through some of the very basic things. Now we will just stop in a while. Like if you are feeling a little tired, we'll just stop in a while. Yeah. So Anurag, there are two ways to declare dictionary. One of the ways is to start like this. Also, you can say ages is equal to new dict, or just a dict keyword. Okay. Yeah. Or you can simply initialize it. Like you can say as is equal to. Okay. So in that case, what happens? See that it got initialized and all the other keys will also come in the picture. Okay. So there are these three ways to initialize a dictionary, right? Fine. So now what we are going to do, we are just going to launch a few quizzes to test your understanding, and then just one last concept before we close for the day. That will be most important. So please do not miss the last part. So I have first of all two quizzes for you. So this is actually a nested dictionary. Just we can access first key, and then inside the first key we have again a dictionary. So we can again use the square braces to get the second key's value. Okay. So here also some of you have answered this incorrectly. Okay, it should have been visible. Let me launch the second quiz, and I think you all should be able to see this one. So clear simply erases the dictionary, right? So now you have a brief idea what it will do. Okay, so I think that was very simple. Now, before closing the session, we'll discuss one major thing that will be so much helpful from the next sessions. So first we'll discuss how do we import a module. So what is a module and how do we import a module? So let's say we want to use the inbuilt GCD method of Python that Python already provides us. So that will be there in some Python file, right? So these Python files from where we try to import some functions into our current program, those are known as modules, right? So modules are the inbuilt codes, or basically it's any Python file that we are using in our current file. So that we are kind of importing, right? So let's say that we want to have a GCD function of two numbers, let's say 5, 10. If I just do this, it won't work, right? Why? Because we do not have this GCD method imported currently. Okay. So GCD is not defined. So to handle this, what we can say, from math import GCD. So now this GCD method would be defined for us. I can just try to print this as well. So that's how we can import a single function from a given library. I could say from math import star, that would import everything. I can just say import math. That would also import everything from the math package or math module. Okay, I think import math doesn't work. Is that the case? Okay, in that case, what I have to say? I have to say math.gcd, right? Because the entire package is loaded in that case. So a package is a collection of modules. So here you are importing the entire math package. Okay, exactly. So this is one way, and then we have other way was from math import GCD, and then you can simply say print GCD of 5 comma, let's say 10 comma, or let's say 12 comma 18. Okay, in that case it would work. And in Python you could have import statements anywhere in your code. They need not be at the top of your code. Okay, great. So we'll explore more on this when we will be using the Django library. And to install any particular module, you can use the pip keyword. So this pip is a Python installation manager, kind of like your sudo apt-get, something like that. You use the apt package manager, right? In your Linux machines, it's something like that. It allows you to install the Python packages. So I can just say that pip list, it will show me. Okay, I think I have pip3. Yeah, it could be PIP or PIP3 depending on which Python version you are using. So I am currently having Python 3, and I will recommend you to use Python 3 only. Yes, so Sudarshan, those instructions we will give you beforehand. So we'll give you recorded videos to set up your environment, right? So we can say pip list, pip3 list, it will show me these packages are installed. We can say pip3, let's say I want to install Django. So I can simply say pip3 install Django. It will install the Django module for me, right? So let me just stop it for now. So that's how you installed any package or module, or I should say a library in that case. Fine. So now before we close, just one last thing that we will be learning is what is a class. So since we have said that everything is an object, so let's just understand what is a class. Okay. Let me just create a new file, save it by class this.py. So how many of you here are familiar with object-oriented programming paradigm? It seems like most of you have covered it in your colleges. Some of you have not done it. Okay, that's completely fine. So we'll discuss about it in depth. Today we'll just define what a class is and what is an object, right? So basically I will tell it to you in this way. Let's say that, so what actually happens is, in today's languages like C++, Java, Python, we generally use object-oriented programming because it allows us to read code easily. It allows us to reuse parts of our code. So basically the use cases are, it allows us to read code easily, and it allows us to make real world relationships in the code, and it allows us for reusability of a lot of code. Now how this happens, we'll go over one by one as we will be building the application. So let's say you are using a scalar platform. So a scalar platform might be having some kind of entities for the users, for the students, for the instructors, right? It could have for the mentors, for the let's say your assignments, for your lessons, for your topics in the lessons, and you might have some entities for the, let's say, problems that are there in your assignments, right? So there could be relations here, like it could be one lesson has one topic, one lesson has multiple problems, one lesson has one assignment. uh, this user is a student, this user is an instructor, right? So there could be multiple such relationships. So it becomes easier to maintain these relationships into your code, to read your code. So when somebody is implementing something in this huge application, they would be able to relate it to what is happening, right? So the main idea of object oriented programming is so that you can relate everything through the objects, right? Through the classes and objects. And there are a lot of functionalities that this provides us. I'll just briefly list down. They are encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So if these all four features are not clear to you right now, it will be clear uh, once we start building the things, right? So do not worry about this. Okay, let's just now say see very basic thing. How do we define a class? So let's say that I just want to define a person class. Okay, so I can just say class person, and then what I could say is I could just provide the uh, init method. So now what this init method is, it is actually like a constructor. So like we have a person, or let's say we have a student. Now what all properties do student have? So the classes allows us to club together the allow us to club the data and the methods. Okay, so that is the property, that is encapsulation, and only this we will look today. After this we will be able to at least understand how can we create these classes and their objects. Okay, are things making sense till this point? Like, I'll not go into too much depth here because we will be ultimately learning this when we will be building the project. Okay. So Ayan, our end goal for today's session is just to get familiar with almost all the basic things in Python, so that when we okay, for the Django sessions, our end goal is to build a end-to-end running application and deploy it on a server. So deploy it on some server like Heroku. So we'll try to deploy, have a running application. Now what that application is, we will tell it to you when we start building it, right? So there's no hurry in that. And we'll also have an assignment for you people, an evaluated assignment, which will be something on the lines of what we will be building. Not completely different, something on those lines. Okay, so this init method actually takes in this self, which is a instance of the student that we will be passing. So it will be clear in a moment. Then we take as a input, let's say student can have a name, and let's say it can he or she can have an email. This is the init method, and here what we will do, we'll set the name to be equal to name, we'll set the email to be equal to email. And now let's just try to close this class and try to create a new object, an object for the class. let's just say that student S1 is equal to student. I'll give the name. Here you can see that we have to pass the name and email, right? So let's say I give Ayan, and let's say that the email is aiyan12@gmail.com. Okay. So at some random mail service. I'm not sure, Manish, about that. Let's say S2 is equal to student of what I can pass. Let's say Manish here, and let's give some random email. Okay. Now, once I do this, and now let's try to print s1.name, print s2.name, and let's try to run this. So you see that you can get the names of these students. Okay. So it allows us to map the real world entities into our objects, right? So till now we were having class, we were having integer objects, we were having dictionary objects, list objects. Now we have a custom data type. Okay. So they also allows us to create our own custom data types, right? That is the end goal. We want to create something of our own. Now I hope till this point it's clear to all of you. Uh, yeah, self is same as the this keyword. So self is actually the same as in C++. You would have something like this. You would have the constructor like student name email, and self is actually, yeah, we need not declare them. We can just assign them values. They will automatically get declared. The data members. Self is like this pointer in C++. Okay. So that's how you can define a class. The init method is actually used to create an instance of the class, right? So a student, there could be multiple students, right? So you just have to create their objects or the instances. So for that you need the values, you need the data values. So for a student you have name and email, and this self you always have to pass. Why? Because this self keyword refers to which student are you working with, which student is this whose name you are assigning to be name, right? Does that make sense? Yes, it's is in it. Yes, exactly, Alok. It's the default constructor, but we are trying to pass name and email to set the name and email of the object. Okay, so should we all stop at this point? Anybody has any questions? Now we'll take all the questions that you have. So we are done with the basic things that you will be requiring. Let us take up all the questions that you have. I know this self keyword might be little unclear to you. So we will be also going through all these things once we start the Django project, right? If you face any issues at any time, we will be dealing with it. So basically, Alok, you are able to access this name and age, but you cannot set this. So let's say I say s1.name is equal to Alok. Now it's not going to work. It's going to give us the same name. Actually, there is this property that allows us to secure our data. You cannot change it directly, right? This is the concept actually of abstraction. Not exactly abstraction, I would say it's part of encapsulation only, but let's not get into the terms now, right? Okay, Ayan will discuss about that in a lot more detail if that will be required, right? Okay. Right now, just focus on this thing. How do you create a class? It has some of its properties, and all these properties are public at the moment, right? At the moment, there is nothing private over here, right? So if anybody doesn't have any doubts, you can leave the session. Good night, and we'll see you in the next session where we'll start with the web development. So from the next session, we are going to deep dive into it. Okay, so I'll answer all the questions that are pending now. So I have answered the previous question. Let me take a look at the other questions. But first of all, anybody has doubts in this class declaration? Anirudh, please send me the code if that issue persists, right? So make sure whenever you are typing a colon, after that, you just give a new line, right? Let's say there are some inputs, INP1, input 1, input 2. So then you are giving a colon, press enter, so that make sure it goes at some indentation level. Okay, and let's just try to print input 1 and print input 2. And then if we go backspace, so then it should get like we should get out of this block by pressing a backspace. Make sure your indentations are consistent. So if you send your code, it will be easier to understand, right? Snehal, that's a good question. So that's not relevant right now. Okay. We just want to have one constructor for our class. We do not have to have more than one. Oh, Kazi Mamun says earthquake just struck. Which part of the country are you in, Kazi? Take care. Like, I hope there's nothing serious about there. Okay. Fine. So let me just start the doubt session in case anybody doesn't have any queries right at the moment. Just give me one moment. I'll start the doubt session. Okay. Yes, so Alok is asking, I'm new to Django and development. Is it fine? Yes, it's absolutely fine. So I'll tell you, like, even when I started first development, like, you all have some fear initially when you start doing the web development because you are not familiar with the terms, with the concepts, right? Learning syntax is not an issue. Learning the concepts is something that we want to teach you so that once you start building, you will not have any fear, right? So the only fear that most of you have when you start is like you do not have a exposure of what all concepts are there, right? So we'll see the concepts and relate them to the implementation details, right? So implementation is of no use unless you understand the ideas behind that, right? Okay, so let me take up the questions that were asked from the starting of the session. So Ayan was asking, why aren't we using JS, React, and Node? Uh, right, Ayan. So basically, what will happen is we'll be covering JS, but I think it will be there in your next set of modules, right? So currently, we want to start with Django because it's one of the simplest frameworks for you to get started, right? We should not start with something that's very much tricky. We should start with something that's easy to understand initially so that you get the concepts clear. Switching from one framework to other framework is not that difficult. How do we know the type of data? So for that, we use the type function. How do we declare a global variable? Others, I did not get that question clearly. Yes, Anurag, that is definitely going to be used. Without that, there could not be a web page that will be built. How do we overcome this? Not sure. Vinay, I didn't get this. Since all databases are data types are objects, why didn't the dot operator work? Yogeshwar. I answered that earlier. A difference in array lists and dictionaries, that's also clear. Dot find Kostov is clear. Can types be changed? Yes, Yogeshwar. The types can be changed in the middle of the code. We can change the types. Does the self dot name equal to name actually do? Why we are writing this way? Okay, Snehil, I'll get to that. Yes, input is Mahip answered. How do we change the branch in git bash? You can use the git checkout command, Athav, and try to explore on this to change the branches, right? Okay. So what does the self dot name equal to name actually do? Why are we writing this way? Okay. So let me answer Snehil's question. So basically, see what happens is when we do self dot name equal to name, it simply creates a name attribute, a name data member for the student, right? So now like you can access the name by s1 dot name. It will not change the data, but you can access the data. So this simply sets the name by the argument that we have passed here, right? So you see that you have passed the name as the argument. It will simply associate that with the object s1, right? So s1 has a different name, s2 has a different name, right? So each object will have a different name, right? Does that make sense, Snail? Each object has a different name. Athav, you can use either main or master. That doesn't really matter. That doesn't really matter. Just follow with one convention. Yes, so Siddharth, I will share some extra reference material. Go through the Python documentation, go through the references that we'll be sharing, and then you will be good to go. And just try all the things that we have discussed in the today's session. Try them yourself. Okay. Try to write some of your previous programs in your Python language. Okay. Fine, that's it in this case. Then we'll see you on Monday then, and we'll try to share some resources so that you can get started. I would suggest using the VS Code editor or the PyCharm community edition. Alok. Athav, if it's saying access denied, please make sure that this hello.py file is you are the owner for that file. So please do send me the screenshot of the issue that is coming to you in the Scalar chat, Athav. I'll get back to you on this. I'm not really sure about it right away. Any other questions do we have from anybody? Alok, I'm not sure about that actually, whether you have a contest or not. Please do check in your Scalar chat groups once. Far as what actually happens is there is a name variable that is actually set to main, right? So if you do not understand this, do not worry. We will be covering this. Okay. You just try to complete this method. So basically what happens actually is whenever you have a file, you try to run this file. So if you just print the underscore underscore name underscore underscore variable, this is actually pronounced as the double underscore name. Okay, so it's in short form called as dunder name. Okay, if you just print this, it gives you underscore underscore main. So what actually happens is when you go to some other file, you try to import some file. Let's say I try to import the file2. I'll make a file2, and oh sorry, I need to create it. Now if I go inside file2.py, wait, sorry. Oof, okay, let me open it from here. And if I just try to print it over here, oh sorry. So when we import, what actually happens is all this content will get called one by one. So if I just run this now, you see that inside file2, this variable's name was file2. Inside main, its name is, inside the file, its name is main. Okay. So it actually allows us to distinguish between the caller file and the called file. Okay. So the file that is being allows us to distinguish between the executing file and the other modules. Okay, you can say it in this way for short understanding. So basically here it is going to be main because you are running file2. But if I run python3 file2.py, in that case it would print us main only, right? So it allows us to distinguish between something that we are importing and something that we are executing. So actually in the programs you see, you are given with this variable main set, where you are checking if it is equal to main, then only you are calling some method. So you need not go into much detail. If it will be useful, we will be explaining it to you in a more detail. Okay, fine. So I hope that answers your question. Sorry for us. Okay. Fine, then I think that's it. I think all of you have got a decent idea of three things now: shell commands, Git, GitHub, and the basics of Python. At least a small little command. Like we cannot learn everything in one day, so we'll have to go step by step. Okay. So that's it from my side. Then I'll see you on Monday. Then all of you take care till then, and keep trying the things that we are discussing. Otherwise, you will forget them. Okay. So that's it from my side. All of you take care, and we'll meet you in the next session on Monday. Okay. Cool then. Bye, all of you. Bye. Good night. Thank you, everyone. Okay.